The film opens with silence, not emptiness, but the kind of quiet that belongs only to untouched places. A wide shot frames an old farmhouse at golden hour, its wooden walls glowing amber in the slanting sunlight. The fields around it sway in a slow breeze, grass rippling like water. No cars, no wires, no signs of the modern world. This is a place forgotten by time, and for now, that feels like safety. The camera drifts closer, catching details. Laundry fluttering on a line, a handmade doll slumped on the porch steps, a rusted axe embedded in a stump. These aren't just set dressing, they're clues. The axe suggests self-sufficiency, the doll innocence, the laundry routine. Life here is simple, hard, but honest. Inside, the mother kneads bread, flour dusting her wrists, while the father mends a fishing net by the fire. Their movements are practiced, unhurried. They don't speak much, they don't need to. Outside, the child, Maya, chases a chicken, her laughter the only sharp sound in the haze of insects and wind. The camera lingers on her bare feet, crushing wildflowers, her small hands brushing against tall grass. For a moment, she stops. Something in the trees catches her eye. A shadow, a deer. The audience leans in, but then she shrugs and skips away. The moment passes, almost unnoticed. Dinner is stew eaten at a scarred wooden table, candlelight pooling in the grooves of the grain. The father tells a story about his own childhood in this house. The mother rolls her eyes but smiles. Maya drops her spoon, and the clatter makes them all jump, then laugh at themselves. It's a tiny beat, but it matters. Fear isn't foreign here, it's just usually reserved for mundane things. As night falls, the mother tucks Maya into bed, smoothing her hair with hands roughened by work. The doll sits on the windowsill, its button eyes reflecting the first stars. Through the glass, the horizon blurs. Not with darkness, with something thicker. The camera doesn't zoom in, it doesn't need to. The fog is coming, and in this quiet, ordinary life, that single shot of the doll's unblinking stare is all the warning we get. The day's last light bled across the fields as the family finished their evening chores. A stillness settled over the farm, deeper than usual, the kind of quiet that makes you notice the absence of crickets. The father lingered by the fence, rolling a cigarette between calloused fingers when he first saw it, a mist creeping along the tree line. Not the thin, wispy kind that came on cool mornings, but something thicker, heavier, moving against the wind. It slithered between the pines like a living thing, tendrils probing forward with unnatural purpose. He frowned, but didn't call out. Fog was just fog. Inside, the mother wiped flour from her hands onto her apron and reached to close the kitchen window. The glass pane reflected her tired eyes for a brief moment before her fingers froze. The yard beyond was disappearing, not fading into darkness as night fell, but being erased inch by inch, swallowed whole by that advancing wall of gray. She heard it then, a sound like whispering, though no words could be made out. Just the unsettling sensation of breath against the back of her neck, despite being alone in the room. Upstairs, the child pressed her palms to the cold window, fogging the glass with her excited breath. "Look how fast it's coming," she giggled, tracing a finger through the condensation. Behind her, the doll slumped against the bedpost, its yarn hair limp. Outside, shapes moved within the mist, not deer, not anything with legs. They flickered at the edge of vision, gone when she turned her head. A game, she decided, and pressed her nose to the pane. The fog kissed back, a damp fingerprint blooming where her face had been. By the time the father stomped his boots on the porch, the world beyond the steps had vanished. The well, the barn, the path to town, all gone. The fog curled around the porch posts now, testing the wood like a tongue. It smelled wrong, not of earth or rain, but of something long buried, something that had festered. When he reached to touch it, the mist recoiled, then lunged, wrapping his wrist in icy tendrils. He yanked back with a curse, but the mark remained, a handprint of frostburn, searing and numb at once. Inside, the lanterns guttered. Shadows stretched too long, the walls breathing in the sudden chill. The mother clutched her daughter's shoulder, both watching as the front door's cracks began to weep moisture. Not seep, weep. Beads of water swelled like tears along the grain, dripping black where they fell. The child's laughter died in her throat. Somewhere beyond the door, something scratched. Not the wind, not an animal. 5 slow, deliberate drags of claws against wood. Then the lights went out. The house groaned under the weight of the unnatural night. Its familiar creaks now stretched into something sinister. The father jammed a chair beneath the doorknob, not because he believed yet, but because the act itself was a comfort, a ritual against the dark. His wife clutched the oil lamp, its trembling light painting her face in flickers of gold and shadow. The child sat cross-legged on the floor, her doll clutched to her chest, watching the adults with wide, unblinking eyes. A draft snaked through the room, though every window was latched. The flame in the lamp bent sideways, as if something had exhaled against it. Then the whispers began, not from outside, but from the walls themselves. A chorus of voices too low to decipher, syllables sticking like wet cotton in the ears. The mother reached for her daughter, her fingers brushing the girl's shoulder, just as the child tilted her head and answered, "Yes." Silence. The parents froze. The child hadn't spoken to them. Upstairs, a floorboard screamed. Not the pop of old wood settling. This was the sound of something heavy dragging itself across the landing. The father grabbed the axe from above the hearth, his palms slick against the handle. The metal head caught the lamplight as he moved, throwing jagged reflections onto the ceiling. For a heartbeat, the shadows there twitched in response, forming shapes that might have been fingers, might have been teeth. The child stood suddenly, her doll tumbling to the floor. She walked toward the hallway, steps eerily precise. "Maya, stop!" the mother hissed, but the girl didn't turn. At the threshold, she paused, her small back rigid. The darkness beyond the doorway pulsed. Something giggled in her voice. Then the lamp died. In the blackness, the parents crashed into each other, shouting their daughter's name. The father's axe thudded against wood, whether by accident or because he'd swung at something, he couldn't say. When the mother finally struck a match, the hallway was empty. Only the doll remained, face down on the floorboards, its yarn hair fanned out like something had yanked it backward. From the cellar, 3 slow knocks echoed. The house exhaled dampness through its pores, wooden beams swelling with unnatural moisture as the fog pressed in from all sides. It came not as weather, but as a patient intruder, slithering through keyholes in liquid ribbons, pooling beneath doors like black saliva. The mother backed away from the kitchen sink, her hands dripping not with dishwater, but with something thicker, stringy between her fingers. The drain gurgled, then vomited a coil of mist that writhed across the linoleum before dissolving into the air. Upstairs, the child's bedroom window pulsed. The glass didn't shatter, it breathed inward, bowing like a membrane under some colossal lung. Frost spiderwebbed across the panes in seconds, forming patterns that almost looked like writing. The doll on the windowsill toppled over, its porcelain face cracking against the sill. When the child reached to pick it up, The threads of its smile had unspooled into a gaping scream. Downstairs, the father wrenched open the fuse box, only to recoil as fog poured from the circuits, alive with snapping sparks. The house lights flared once, a death rattle, casting a grotesque shadow show on the walls. Something with too many joints crouched in the hallway, something else dangling from the ceiling like a skinned eel. Then darkness. In the suffocating black, the mother's gasp came out visible, her breath a glowing plume that illuminated, just for an instant, the face pressed against her own. Not a face, a wet hollow where features should be, stretching itself across her exhale like a starving thing. She stumbled backward into the pantry, shelves rattling as jars of preserves shattered one by one. Strawberry jam oozed over her feet, warm as blood. The child's laughter echoed from the attic. The father's axe split the staircase railing as he charged upward, blind with panic. Halfway up, the steps turned spongy beneath his boots, wood softening into something that squelched and clung. Above him, the trap door yawned open, dribbling strands of fog that twitched toward him with insectile hunger. Somewhere below, the front door finally gave way with a sound like tearing flesh. The house inhaled. The fog had teeth now. Not the jagged kind from nightmares, but something worse. Needle-thin filaments that drifted on the air like cobwebs, clinging to skin with a static hunger. The mother felt them first as she crawled through the ruined pantry, her palms coming away glistening with 1,000 tiny punctures. The wounds didn't bleed. They wept a clear, scentless fluid that made her fingers stick together like flypaper. Upstairs, the father's boots made wet sucking sounds as he waded through the hallway, not from mud, but because the floorboards had split open in jagged mouths, each exhaling gusts of fog that coiled around his ankles. The axe in his hand had grown heavier, its steel head crusted with rime that pulsed like a heartbeat. When he blinked, the frost patterns on the walls rearranged themselves into faces he almost recognized. His grandfather's sunken cheeks, his sister's drowned eyes. They mouthed warnings he couldn't hear over the buzzing in his ears. The child's voice still floated down from the attic, but the words had warped. What once was "Daddy, come play," now came out in glottal stops, a wet staccato that popped like bubbles in a drowning throat. The trap door above him yawned wider, its hinges stretching like tendons. Through the gap, things moved. Not shadows, but the opposite. Patches of deeper fog that held shapes. A hand with too many knuckles, a smile that bisected a forehead. Back in the kitchen, the mother's wedding ring sizzled against her skin. She tore it off just as the metal blackened, the band unspooling into a worm of tarnish that writhed in her palm. The sink faucet groaned, then vomited a rope of hair and pond scum. When she reached to turn it off, the porcelain handle melted like warm wax under her grip. Somewhere beneath the house, the cellar door thudded, once, twice, then fell silent. The pause was worse than the noise. The father's breath came in ragged gasps as he staggered through the ever-shifting corridors of the house, his axe now more burden than weapon. The walls pulsed around him like living tissue, their once solid surfaces now undulating with a sickening rhythm. Each step forward felt like wading through waist-deep water, the air thick with the scent of wet earth and something metallic, like old blood on copper coins. His daughter's voice still called to him, but it came from everywhere at once, from the ceiling beams, from behind the peeling wallpaper, even from the sweat-slick handle of his own axe. The sound had taken on a strange, echoing quality, as if multiple children were speaking in perfect unison, just slightly out of phase with one another. "Daddy," they whispered, "you're not looking hard enough." A sudden gust of frigid air rushed down the hallway, carrying with it a flurry of photographs, family snapshots that swirled around him like leaves. He grabbed at one, only to watch in horror as the image of his daughter's smiling face began to dissolve, the ink running like tears before the paper itself crumbled to ash in his fingers. The floorboards ahead warped and twisted, forming a grotesque staircase that descended into darkness. From below came a wet, rhythmic sound, like something large being dragged across concrete. The father gripped his axe tighter, his knuckles white, as a single drop of moisture fell from the ceiling onto his cheek. When he wiped it away, his fingers came away streaked black. Somewhere in the house, a clock began to chime midnight, though the hands on his watch had long since frozen in place. With each toll of the bell, the walls seemed to contract slightly, the hallway growing narrower, the ceiling lower. The father realized with dawning terror that the house wasn't just haunted, it was digesting him. The mother's hands trembled as she pressed her back against the pantry door, the wood vibrating against her shoulder blades like a living thing. The jars of preserves lining the shelves had all burst, their contents now pooling on the floor in thick, congealing puddles that smelled faintly of turned earth and copper. She tried to steady her breathing, but each inhale brought the fog deeper into her lungs, cold and cloying, with the aftertaste of something long buried. A child's giggle echoed from the hallway, her daughter's, but wrong, stretched thin like a recording played at half speed. She wanted to call out, but her tongue stuck to the roof of her mouth, suddenly heavy and foreign. When she tried to swallow, she tasted salt and rust. The pantry door handle began to turn on its own, the metal groaning as it twisted into impossible shapes. First a hook, then a claw, then something that resembled human fingers. The mother stumbled backward, her feet slipping in the sticky mess on the floor. As she fell, her elbow connected with a shelf, sending a rain of glass shards down around her. One slashed across her cheek, but the wound didn't bleed. Instead, a fine gray mist seeped from the cut, curling upward to join the thickening air. From the other side of the door came a new sound, fabric rustling, like a dress brushing against the walls, her daughter's favorite dress, the one with the sunflower print. The mother's breath hitched as the door creaked open just enough to reveal a small hand pressed against the frame. The nails were too long. The skin was too pale. "Mommy," the thing whispered, its voice a perfect mimicry down to the slight lisp her daughter had when she was tired. "I can't find my doll." The mother reached out before she could stop herself, her fingers brushing against those two cold digits. In that instant of contact, she saw the well out back, its stones slick with algae, something moving in the dark water below, a small body floating face down, hair fanning out like golden seaweed. The doll clutched in stiff fingers. Then the vision snapped like a rubber band, and the hand she held was her daughter's again, warm and alive, and tugging her forward. "Come see," the child urged, smiling with all her baby teeth. The mother followed. The father stood at the mouth of the attic stairs, his axe dangling from numb fingers. The wood beneath his boots had gone soft, each step leaving behind fleshy imprints that seeped a dark, viscous fluid. The trapdoor above hung open like a slack jaw, tendrils of fog lolling out over the edges, dripping onto the steps below with a sound like fat hitting a hot skillet. Maya's voice drifted down, sweet and clear, too clear, like a recording stripped of all background noise. "Daddy," she called, "I'm scared." His heart clenched, even as some animal part of his brain screamed that nothing up there was his daughter. He climbed. The attic was gone. In its place stretched a vast, impossible space, a roiling sea of fog that churned like a living thing, its surface broken here and there by jagged remnants of their home. A chair leg, a torn picture book, the shattered face of Maya's doll, one glass eye still intact, staring. And there, in the center, stood Maya. Her back was to him, her sunflower dress pristine, her hair neatly braided. The sight was so normal, it hurt. Then she turned. Her face was a perfect porcelain mask until it wasn't. The skin split down the middle with a sound like tearing parchment, peeling back to reveal a writhing mass of fog and shadows beneath. It pulsed in time with his own heartbeat. "Daddy," the thing said, still using Maya's voice, "why didn't you look for me sooner?" Behind her, the fog convulsed, birthing shapes, a parade of half-formed figures with Maya's curls, Maya's laugh, Maya's missing front tooth. They reached for him with too many hands. The axe slipped from his grip, swallowed by the fog before it could hit the ground. Dawn came not with light, but with absence. The fog had withdrawn, leaving behind a house that stood too still, its windows glazed over like cataract eyes. Inside, the walls were damp to the touch, the air thick with the scent of turned earth and something sweetly rotten, like fruit left to ferment in a sealed jar. The front door yawned open, its hinges rusted as if decades had passed in a single night. On the porch, Maya's doll lay face up in a patch of wilted grass, its remaining eye reflecting a sky that held no clouds, no birds. Inside, the kitchen table was set for 3. A plate of food sat untouched at each seat, the eggs congealed, the bread green with mold. A single sip of coffee remained in the father's mug, its surface skimmed over with a film of fog that stirred when the wind sighed through the open door. Upstairs, the attic door was closed. From behind it came a sound like fingernails dragging across wood, counting down. In the master bedroom, the mother's wedding ring rested on the nightstand, its band blackened and twisted into a perfect spiral. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next one. Bye for now.